Hi, this is Daniel, and you're watching Unrivaled Investing. Today, we're going to talk about Sumo Logic, a new IPO. The company is growing very quickly, and can shareholders expect fantastic returns in the years ahead? Let's dig in. So, why did Sumo, ticker SUMO, get my interest? First of all, it's a new IPO. Subscribers to this channel, as well as to Unrivaled Investing, have been asking me to take a look at this company, and it's fast growing. Whenever I see a company that's fast growing, I'm interested in why. So this video, it goes out to all you subscribers that want to know more about this company, and as well as the general YouTube populace. And so what are we going to discuss in terms of Sumo Logic? We want to understand, what is the business? What do they do? What's the opportunity that they're tapping into? Does this have the potential to grow significantly? What's their value proposition? Is it unrivaled? And keep in mind, we'll get back into that unrivaled part because it's so critical to sizing up any company. And lastly, the valuation thoughts. Even if you're tapping into a large market, you always need to compare it and sort of have these dual aspects. One is valuation, and the other is underlying business fundamentals, and they both drive your investment returns. Does this have a 10x potential? Viewing it with these both, through these both of these lenses. But before digging in, if you like to hear about companies that could potentially go up hundreds or even thousands of percent, hit that subscribe button. If you're already a subscriber, hit that like button. And if you want to know what potential multi-baggers I'm personally buying for myself, these companies that I think could potentially go up hundreds or even thousands of percent that I'm buying for myself each month, what I buy, what I sell, what I hold, the top reasons why, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on that journey button, and you can see what I'm personally holding in my portfolio, and hopefully what are these next great companies, because that's the whole purpose of the portfolio. It's me sharing my personal portfolio with you. If you're already a subscriber to this channel, you have any question on a stock that you're interested in, feel free to leave a comment below this video. So what is Sumo Logic? They say they're the pioneer of continuous intelligence, a new category of software. Sounds pretty lofty. Scanning hundreds of petabytes of data per day, 18 billion events per second. Wow, this is incredible. Like, they're scanning so much stuff. And this chart below sort of captures it, which is really anything the company is a company is interacting with, they're providing this continuous intelligence. So the term is appropriate, continuous intelligence, where they're constantly looking at things. It might be a microservice, it might be an interaction on social media, it might be an app or service that a company is running, and seeing how it's running. Like, let's check the processes. Like, hey, maybe we run a query and things are going a little slower than usual. If so, if something weird is going on social media, or a query is weird, or something's coming across analytics strange, we're collecting all this data, and we let the right people in the organization know in real time that something funky is going on. Maybe you're in IT operations, maybe you're a developer, maybe you're in the security side. Anything regarding this company that may be weird, that's should notify the management. That's what this company does. It provides continuous intelligence, monitoring the company, tracking what's going on, and they're trying to deliver real-time analytics and insights for management. So whether or not it's a service the company is providing, it's social interaction, apps and services, analytics, everything is being tracked and it's monitoring. You see this data, like, hey, this is weird. Some data traditionally goes from point A to point B, but now data is going from point A to point C, and C is requesting a lot of data that we've never seen before. Why is that happening? And so, so they're saying all data, unstructured, structured, and semi-structured, sort of goes into that funnel. They're analyzing it and making sure the right people in the company, get to hear about it. So what does this remind me of? Honestly, this reminds me of the original Pioneer. Hello, Dave. This, how the robot that becomes, or the AI that becomes sentient. But actually, this whole Pioneer, a new field of software, that's a bunch of baloney, in my opinion. The field is actually called SIEM. You gotta love these acronyms that finance types love to, like, just make up or pull out of their, you can imagine the place. It's actually, security, information, and event management. That's what it is, SIEM. So what is SIEM? And They scan your data. It means a company that helps scan your data, and it may be huge, petabytes, lots and lots of data, continuously, every second, it's scanning your systems. Anything your company interacts with or processes can be, it can be critical apps your business does. Like, hey, you're charging a bunch of people. We got to make sure everything's running smoothly. It can be social media. Hey, this is the number of people you interact with. Now you're interacting with these people. That's unusual. It can be something that's going on in your internal servers. This is how fast it usually runs, or these are the queries you typically run. Now we're noticing this person is running these queries and they've never done that before. That's weird. Maybe we should notify this folks from IT. Really anything within a company, and it provides insight into what, why, and how to resolve anything related to your business, tech, or cybersecurity issues. Data going from point A to point C when normally it's point A to point B, and why is point C requesting the data? These are the types of things that security info and event management are all about. It is a field, and Sumo Logic is not the creator. They are not this pioneer of a new continuous intelligence field. But if your site, if you're an e-commerce company and your site starts acting funky, or certain parts, you're selling to sellers that seem, you're hosting sellers that seem sort of shoddy, or that they're not your typical business. That's what this is for. Something starts running slower. That's what this continuous intelligence is for. The security, the SIEM factor, the SIEM field is for. So let's go through a real life Sumo Logic customer case study. And that's with Pokemon Go, where Pokemon, International, they have all these properties, whether or not it's the trading cards, TV shows. So they launched Pokemon Go, which is, a super exciting augmented reality game, which came out a couple years ago. And it really got hyperbolic, crazy growth, just because it was the first time people could really play, with their smartphones and have a cool augmented reality experience that was sort of seamless. And I encourage you to go outside and sort of socialize and go to places you might not have ever been to. So there was a lot of fun social aspects to it, where you get to explore. And so I actually played Pokemon Go once or twice, where I was just, like, hey, what's this crazy about, just to see myself. And it's cool. It's cool what the technology was a few years ago. Imagine what it's could be a few years from now. And so why did Sumo Logic hire, or why was Sumo Logic hired by Pokemon? And the reason why is they saw this huge spike in users. And keep on the user data with Pokemon Go, you're walking around, and it needs to track not only where are you going, making sure you're not going to places that you shouldn't be going to, but like, what did you do? What characters did you capture? Did you get a Pikachu or a Jigglypuff? It's just kind of fun to say. And so they're realizing, like, holy smokes, this app captures so much data and creates so many potential problems for us that we need to make sure, like, we're not going to have like any leaks, or that we're handling it all correctly. Like, for example, think about this for a second. You have a bunch of 13-year-olds playing Pokemon Go, and you have a company capturing all that data of teenagers, and that potentially leaks. That is a royal snafu waiting to happen. So Pokemon recognizing, like, oh man, this could be a big issue. Like, hey, the way we treat data from 18-year-olds plus, that's different than, let's say, a 13-year-old. And so they recognize, like, we need to make sure we're handling this data well, that there is continuous monitoring of where this data goes, where it's stored, who can access it, what really, how do we make sure we scale as Pokemon Go goes exponential? And so they hired Sumo Logic to be the provider, their continuous intelligence provider. And you can see, here's an example below of someone traveling around the neighborhood. So you can see, where is this teenager going? Where do they live? And you can see the below in the bottom left, the picture of, like, hey, this is the creature that they're capturing. So lots of different data points that you have to make sure this data is being captured. And here's what they had to say: with hundreds of millions of customers, any security breach would be devastating. There's simply no way that we could hire enough analysts to manually carry out the hard work of protecting sensitive user information that Sumo Logic does for us automatically. So Pokemon Go is one of the top case studies you see when you look at Sumo Logic. are there any other notable customers, or is this just sort of a one and done sort of deal? And the reality is they have some major top tier clients: Netflix, PagerDuty, MLB, Ulta Beauty, LendingTree, JetBlue, Salesforce, Xero, Twilio. Many of these companies, with the exception of MLB, which is sort of, Major League Baseball, which is sort of yesteryear. No offense. No offense to any baseball fans. Like, I enjoy watching the Yankees, once a decade. But many of these companies, these are the pioneers of the future that are leading the way. So to see that they're choosing Sumo Logic, like, that's a plus. When I'm thinking about sussing out, does this company have an unrivaled value proposition? This is one of the data points that I'm going to be considering when I'm weighing that scale. Okay, so they have some major customers. They must be operating in a big market, right? Does this have the potential for 10x opportunity? Because in order to have a 10x shareholder return, you either need to get it from valuation expanding by 10x, or fundamentals, or some bit of both. So let's see if the fundamental side has that 10x potential. And their total addressable market is huge. Management pencils out somewhere between 49 billion and 55 billion. And that's against around 200 million. This is about annualized revenue for what they're doing right now. So it's just a huge market. So like, when you're looking at 200 million versus tens of billions, yes, from a pure fundamentals perspective, if they're able to crush this market, set themselves apart, and grab, a large chunk of it, they could be 10x bigger. But what's the problem operating in a sumo-sized market? This huge market. The problem is competition. Where if you are operating in a monster market, it's going to attract other players that are aware, like, hey, here's a big problem we need to solve. How can we solve it? So Sumo Logic isn't the only one at this dance. You got to factor in other players, and they call this out in their filings, where they say our competitors and potential competitors include providers of tools such as analytics, enterprise, and open source search, SIEM, which is what I've been telling you, like, hey, this whole continuous intelligence, it's really SIEM, monitoring, and other software offerings that customers may perceive as substitutes for our platform. Our primary competitors include Splunk and Elastic. And full disclosure, I personally own shares in Elastic. So keep in mind, like, the whole point of my focus of an unrivaled value proposition is that you want to avoid competition, or you have an unrivaled value proposition and you just crush the competition. But when you're like these heavyweights and you're going at it, that's just brutal. Like, I don't want to be one of these guys that get tossed in the air and just like thrown on my back. This sounds blah. Like, competition is tough. You want to be unrivaled, or in a space where no one can compete with you. So, for regular viewers, they know I use the unrivaled, value proposition as the key filter that gets rid of 95% of the investment universe. Because when you're unrivaled, it means you have a right to win. You have a good or a service that you simply can't get elsewhere. And so that means you will dominate the market that you're in because you have this unrivaled value proposition. So the question is, does Sumo Logic have that unrivaled value proposition? How do they compare against, let's say, their primary competitors, Splunk and Elastic? And the answer is, it's like Sumo Logic is the little guy like pushing against Splunk or Elastic, where they are multiples of their size, and historically they've grown at the same rate that Sumo has. So to see like that Elastic is growing at a faster rate than Sumo, like, I would expect a smaller player to put up even much better growth, because you're a smaller company. It's easier to grow, just the law of large numbers. The larger you are, the harder it is for you to double. So to see that the growth is in the same ballpark, that's concerning. Like, that from a unrivaled value proposition framework is like, ding, not good. Then if you peel back, a layer, and you look at Elastic versus Sumo, there's a key metric that a lot of these software companies talk about, which is net revenue retention, net revenue expansion, which is where, if you had no new customers during the year, what would your business look like? So if you have, let's say, 120% net revenue retention. That means no new customers for the year, your business would still grow by 20% that year, just based on the customers you had at the start of the year. That's 120% net revenue retention. So Sumo doesn't really put it front and center. They sort of hide it in the middle of the report, saying like, yeah, it's historically ranged from 120 to 130. That's a good number. Don't get me wrong. It's not bad. But then you have Elastic, which is bigger than them, saying that their comparable rate has consistently been above 130. So Elastic's doing a better job upselling or growing their customers than Sumo, and their multiples the size. Like, that's also not a good data point, like from thinking about the unrivaled value proposition perspective. So how do they compare? Like maybe we can get like a detailed breakdown. And the easiest, one easy way to check, check software solutions is to look at vendor or integrators, because the integrators oftentimes are the ones that are selling to the end customers, where they're saying like, hey, here are the 5 solutions in the marketplace. Let me break it down for you in terms of what the pros and cons of these different types are. And you could see Splunk, Sumo Logic, Elastic, and a couple other open source solutions, so that you could see how these are comparing. And honestly, like as you stare at this, by and large, you're not going to see a lot of differentiation. And that's also the reports that I read, from a couple of different websites, where it's not like, oh yeah, you have to go to Sumo Logic, it's going to blow you away, for your SIEM needs. That's not it. It's, yeah, here are 3 different providers. Up to you. There are sort of aspects, like niche aspects, like Sumo Logic's much more for cloud, pretty much pure cloud companies, whereas you could have more on-premise companies with Splunk, even though on-premise is sort of looking backwards in terms of the companies of the future. So when you see like, hey, comparable if not better financial metrics from their competitors, you see that different websites, vendor integrators are sort of saying like, yeah, I'm going to lay it all out for you, and it's up to you, customer, which one you want to pick. Do they have an unrivaled value proposition? And sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that. Like, this is just too hard for me. No, that's not how. That's a red light. Like, this doesn't meet the unrivaled value proposition test for me. So at this point, as I indicated, that unrivaled value proposition test, that's going to filter out 95% of the investment universe for me. And that makes my investment life a lot easier. It's much more fun to focus on companies that I'm like, yeah, you maybe only have one competitor and you do something different, and you're going to own this field and they're going to own that, and it's going to be great to watch. But that's how I personally choose to invest. Other people, hey, you can sharpen your pencil and try to figure out like, even though it's not unrivaled, maybe you can still get a satisfactory investment return, and it's possible. So let's see what their valuation pencils out to. Like let's put this through. Let's put Sumo through the valuation framework, and that's my value proposition to you, my loyal YouTube subscribers, which is that you can click the link and play around with the assumptions yourself for what you think Sumo Logic could do in the years ahead. This is not trading. I'm very, long-term focused. Any investment position I own, I want to partner with the company and benefit from their fundamental growth. I'm not looking to be like a day trader where you're like, oh, this is up 100% today. No, that game's way too hard, and it's a zero-sum game. I want an additive game where a company grows and all the shareholders can get wealthy over time. And so based on where Sumo Logic started trading, around $27 a share, you can see, this $2.7 billion valuation. You can see the implied growth this year. So far, based on their data, they're growing somewhere between 35 and 40% this fiscal year. And keep in mind, I'm assuming optimized margins of 15 to 25%. They're currently operating at negative 30 plus operating margins. So huge operating loss currently, where they're operating. So this is sort of, I'm definitely giving some credit here, but this is how you'd want to think about the valuation of the company. And so I'm putting a range 15 to 25%. The reason why it's not as high as some other software companies is their margins are actually a little lower than some pure software plays that I've seen at 80, 90% up, gross margins. Their gross margins are closer to 70%. And so, that flow through to an operating margin perspective, after your sales costs, your R&D costs, your G&A costs, I'm penciling out 15 to 25%. Could it be more? Sure. Slap on a 25% tax rate, and you can see that this implies if they needed to optimize their margins today, like what they could structurally be, that it's ranging from like on a high side of like 67 times forward earnings to like 115. That seems pretty rich for a company that's only growing 35 to 40% this year. That's my take. And keep in mind, this is a hypothetical analysis. Stock prices can go way higher and way lower than what you're penciling out. But I prefer to do these types of analyses so that way I can think like this is a rational approach to it. If it goes at my low, like what is the market effectively baking in at the current price? And am I missing something? Like is there a variant perception here where I can make a lot of money with my investments? So then the lower half of this is talking about the investment period. I slap on 5 years, and you can see the different growth rates from 20% annualized. That's not a sudden dramatic drop off from 35% growth to 20. That's saying like, hey, that's 20% annualized over the next 5 years. So you can see 20%, 25%, 30% over the next 5 years, and then assuming some sort of multiple 5 years out of 20 to 30 times earnings. Once again, this is using the same optimized margins above, and this is giving them a lot of credit, like assuming their business gets operational scale, despite the fact that they're negative 30% plus, margins right now. And so you can see, the upside downside really isn't that compelling. That this is based on the data I'm putting in here. If you disagree with me, play around with the sheet yourself. Think about like what you think it should be worth in the future. Like maybe you think the multiple should be way higher. That's up to you. Maybe you think the growth rate could be way higher. Given that they don't have that unrivaled value proposition, it's hard for me to say like with strong confidence, oh yeah, your growth rate should be higher. When you're fighting and it's trench warfare, it's really tough for you to say like undoubtedly you're going to grow real quick. So it doesn't seem crazy compelling. It's a pass for me. It doesn't seem crazy compelling on a value proposition basis or on valuation. But if you do want to see what I'm buying, selling, and holding, what's the reason that I hold my top positions, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on that journey button. There's also exclusive videos that I provide, and also, just a basic framework. I'm looking to find multi-baggers, potential multi-baggers for myself, companies that can go up hundreds or even thousands of percent. And you can see in my existing portfolio, there are several companies that have gone up hundreds of percent in the last few years. The reality is just finding one of those companies and piggybacking off of one of those companies that I invest in could easily, cover, joining my journey for years. So if you're interested in seeing what I'm personally doing, following my personal financial journey, go to unrivaledinvesting.com. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. If you're already a subscriber, hit that thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching.